This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. I'm Molly Barrows with our co-host, Pam Hill. If you haven't already, we would love it if you would like and subscribe, and we'd also love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a suggestion about a case, wherever you listen to it, whether it's wherever you get your favorite podcast or if you're watching on our YouTube channel. So there is always some What the Feezy case breaking, brewing, or bubbling up right here in beautiful Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast and well beyond. Today's episode is called Heartless Lynn Turner, Loved Policemen to Death. We're talking about this lady who was convicted in the poisoning deaths of her two husbands. Pam was saying that this is a case that a lot of people have heard of before. I had not heard of it, but then when I started researching it, I realized that some of the pictures from back in the day did look familiar to me, and it is an interesting case. This is one that goes back to the 1990s. This gal was a dispatcher, 911, had a thing for the guys in blue, the boys with a badge, if you will. And unfortunately for them, she had a thing for the boys in blue. She was convicted in the poisoning deaths of her two husbands. So we've got another Judy Buono Black Widow type person right here. Her first husband, Glenn Turner, he died after allegedly being sick with the flu in 1995. Fast forward to 2001 to the death of Randy Thompson, described as her common law husband. So this is an interesting case. You remember this when it was making headlines.
I do. Yeah. Lynn Turner, she was a little shapely lady and just pretty in the face enough, but you'd hear these men, because like she loved being in the popo's presence, and she would stay there, dispatcher. She even took the test to be a police person. She passed the physical test, which I imagine that's kind of hard, but she did not pass the psychological test. Should have been a red flag to people.
Interesting. Well, what did they say? Why didn't she pass it?
They didn't necessarily say what it was, and I don't know what parameters. I'm sure they put them, if this happens, what would you do? If this happens?
Right.
Because she wasn't necessarily well known for her warmth and charm. She was more of a vixen or sexy or whatever. You got this guy, Glenn Turner, and he's a motorcycle guy. He likes motorcycles. He likes drinking beer. He likes partying. He likes bowling, and he likes women too.
And this is in Georgia, right? This is the Atlanta area.
Yep. And so she comes up, and she's pretty enough, and like I said, her shape and her breathlessness and all that kind of stuff, the feminine wiles.
A girly girl.
Yeah. But she liked to do this stuff. She liked to ride motorcycles too, and all of these folks like NASCAR. They like all that stuff.
I mean, I don't blame him. I kind of follow a little bit of NASCAR here and there.
That's fun. Well, and then so she gets with Glenn, and she love bombs him kind of. She gets him some boots and tickets to NASCAR and clothes and all kind of stuff like that. And Glenn, he didn't care about stuff like that. He had a little bit of money, but he made his living and this, that, and the other. But I guess he thought, well, here it is on a cracker. Let me...
Woo! I'll take this cracker.
That's right.
I did read where he was kind of a ladies' man. He liked going out and hanging out with the boys and maybe hitting on some girls, after hours. Never heard of that with a law enforcement officer before. Again, not passing judgment though. It's a stressful job. And they like to go cut loose just like anybody else.
Right.
But he apparently was off the market, if you will, because she was just so high pressure.
Oh yeah, and she spent the money. She was kind of controlling, and they just. I guess he thought, well, this will be fun. I don't know what he thought. But so she was in debt, and so they get married. And at the wedding, there should have been a little bit of somebody going, wait just 1 second here. They couldn't get their unity candle lit, no matter how hard they tried.
Wow, that's a sign.
Guy, lady, you know, what you do there, the two become one.
Yeah.
And then his brother, James, he said, I think he was the best man. And he said, well, I kind of feel like I'm more at a funeral. I don't know if this is going to work out. So, I mean, this is what we got going on right there.
Wow. So people had some reservations, I would say, from the get-go.
Yeah. And so they go on the honeymoon. And so Miss Fancy Pants over here, Miss Living Larger Than She Can, she gets mad at him because he booked a cruise there were families on the cruise. She wanted a luxury cruise. So that started there. And after about 6 months, their chemistry waxes and wanes, separate bedrooms, trips out of town type of thing. And so basically when they're arguing one time, she tells him, I'm going to shoot you with your own gun. You know, kind of, she's getting sassy now because I don't think this went exactly like she wanted. And Glenn had told one of his friends, I think I've made a bad mistake.
Interesting. When he said he thought he made a bad mistake, was it just because the relationship wasn't working out, or was he beginning to think that maybe she was more evil than he had realized?
I think he said, I just want to have fun. You know, I want to go back to bowling. I want to go back to drinking beer. I wanted to go back to what I was doing. I made a mistake. And so she was fine. Unbeknownst to him, she is doing the hip hop, skip hop with Randy, the next person that's going to be
the backup boyfriend.
Yeah. This is all going on. He doesn't know this. Well, in March of 93, this is when Glenn, he gets sick. He's got like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache. He's hallucinating. And so she's a dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher. Lynn knows what to do. Well, so she calls them and says, you know, and tells them, get him to the ER. And she says, well, last night at 12 midnight, he was hallucinating, thinking he could fly off the balcony, and I kind of caught him downstairs trying to drink gas. Well, none of that sounds right anyway. You know, sometimes you're out of your mind when you got that much dehydration and fever or what have you. Well, all the time in between while he's feeling sick like this, goes to the hospital, they give him some IV fluids, send him back home. Well, when he comes back home, she makes him some more green Jello.
This sounds just like Judy Bunyuano.
It does a lot. So, and then after a while, she says, all right, I made you some food. I'm going to go out and run errands and stuff. And when she comes back, there he is, dead in the bed, just with his underwear and a little bit of covers draped over him. And she's like, I don't know what happened.
Wow. So when did people start to think that this was suspicious and something other than natural?
I don't think people thought that for a while because, you know, they just thought that was bad because, like, they thought it was basically irregular heartbeat or cardiac. And so it got ruled a natural cause. So once that gets done like that, then there you go. Of course, Glenn's family was like, look, he's a big old strapping 200-pound man, fit as he can be, you know, and he had planned his pension and retirement for Lynn to be the beneficiary of that. So he didn't think anything of it. Well, at Glenn's funeral, his family's looking around and they see Lynn over there handsy with a man at her husband's funeral.
That's so weird. I mean, it's horrible on every level, but also goes to show to me just how callous she was and completely unself-aware or just didn't care. I mean, if you did kill him, which apparently she did because she was later convicted of it, why would you make it so obvious? Right. Because I don't think he knew about the affair from what I understand.
I don't think he did.
But he was thinking this isn't working out. Maybe we should get divorced. Maybe we should go ahead and go our separate ways. And maybe that's when she was like, well, I better move this plan along. Otherwise, I'm not going to get what he's planning to leave me in case he dies. Which again reminds me of Judy Bunyuano with her numerous victims as well.
Exactly. Oh yeah, it's all about me, and moving the needle on down the road. I'm done with you. Let me dispose of you, and let me just lie to everybody. And basically, that kind of person that just overwhelms you with all that kind of stuff, and you can tell when someone's inappropriate. But I mean, there's this family going, how disrespectful that she's sitting over there doing that. So she goes over to Randy. She doesn't waste too much time.
She moves right in with Randy.
Yep, or they move in together or something.
Yeah, she got a pretty big check from her late husband's death and pension. It was like $153,000.
Right, in the 90s. So
wow.
That's a lot. And so Randy lived over in Warner Robins, Georgia, and he's a manly man too. And so she did the same thing with him. Snakeskin boots, NASCAR, some clothes, let's go party, let's carry on. But he didn't marry her, per se. They lived together because he had a child, I think, before. So anyway, it was all the love bombing. And she had worked for 911, a DA, and a judge. So she knew all this stuff. And she knew how the police departments and stuff work. So she's brilliant at gaslighting all of them.
Right, and how to cover her tracks.
Right, exactly. So anyway, she and Randy had some scruffed upness, and this is like 6 years later that she's with Randy.
Right, so he wouldn't marry her, but they're living together, bought a house together.
Our apartment or something.
Children involved. Whether did they have kids together?
I think they did. I think so.
What I read, that they had a son and a daughter, but I didn't get too far into that.
Well, because she doesn't tell us much about it. She doesn't really care. It's all about her. It's the Lynn Turner show. Well, I think Randy had tried suicide before because Randy, he was kind of messy in his life, I mean, some of us are and some of us ain't, but Glenn wasn't. Glenn was more like a straight arrow.
Well, and Randy, too, you'd said he'd been a police officer before, and then he also became a firefighter, and they actually have some of the highest rates of suicide just because of all the trauma that they're exposed to and the PTSD that they experience. So if he's messy, he's in good company.
Right, exactly. Or you can see a bouncing ball there, and you can say, oh, But so he had tried suicide, and being a fireman was his dream. So he was so happy about that. But so they had some estrangement, but in true vixen form, hey, come on back now. Had him come back for steak and sex, so there was that. And then next thing you know, there is Randy. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, dehydrated, headache. Both of these men gave accounts that I think I'm going to die. They didn't know how prophetic that was, but it's that miserable. And even Randy had some labored breathing and a sinus infection, and he had gotten staph. So his was a little more complicated. Well, Lynn goes and does her thing, just like she did with Glenn. And she comes back and she finds Randy dead on the couch, just in his boxers and just with a little covers draped over him.
Again, not to go back to Judy Buono, but one of her victims, he was complaining she had been poisoning him as well. He goes to the hospital, we don't know, go back home. And then next thing you know, he's gone. In this case, she made him some Jello. He had also gone. Randy had gone to the ER complaining of all those symptoms that you just mentioned, and then comes back, treated and released. She's like, here, have some Jello. This will be good on your stomach.
Right.
And then he's gone.
Right, exactly. Well, and she did it. She's sneaky enough. She did it through things that we think are comfort foods, like the soup or the Jello or maybe some Gatorade or fruit juice, stuff like that. So he's taking it. They don't know to be, watching out for this. Well, when Randy's obituary's out there, Glenn's mom reads that and goes, oh, this sounds like what happened to Glenn, my son. Okay, so Glenn's mom gets with Randy's mom, and here we go. Okay,
I love that. Those mamas are going to stick together.
Oh, yeah, we know they will. And so the mamas are talking there, and you're really going to love what comes next in just a little bit. But in the time being, when Lynn, at the end of Randy's life, she had stopped by the veterinarian place and said, hey, what do y'all use to euthanize animals?
Good Lord.
And the lady in there goes, well, I really ain't comfortable telling you everything, but she said, we call it the purple stuff. So, and she said, it's a controlled substance, and, I don't know much more about it. We just call it the purple stuff. So Lynn finds out that Randy did not have any insurance. He let it lapse.
Yeah, it was like a $200,000 policy. I imagine she was pretty disappointed about that. What, she collected $36,000?
Yeah, call her livid. That's what she was.
Wow. Yeah. Nobody's going to think anything. That's not suspicious.
No, old girl is livid. Well, so they're doing autopsies on Randy, and they rule him natural causes too. But they go back and look at some tissue, and they find some calcium oxalate, which that is usually indicative of ingestion of ethylene glycol or antifreeze. So they're looking at that, and now they changed the cause of his death from natural to homicide.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And so that's when the door starts to open on Randy's death. I mean, not Randy's death, but Glenn's death as well.
Yeah. She probably would have got away with murder with Glenn if she didn't do Randy. But this is when a lady journalist named Jane Hansen comes in. She's from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And she's looking at this, and people have asked her, please help us with this. And she's like, well, like you have to do, tell me what's going on. I'll look into it, and this, that, and the other. Well, what she got to looking into was talking to both families. She said, both of these people are using the same words about her, about the death, about their family. And she thought, this doesn't seem right. And both of them had the comfort food. Both of them had Jello. Both of it was natural and then to hear. But then what she saw when she got this going, finally, the people that prosecute, the prosecutors and stuff are going, well, I think you got something there. I mean, this lady did a lot of the work.
Good for her.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about you when I was reading it. I was like, this is Molly right here.
Well, it is similar. I mean, between lawyers and law enforcement and journalists, basically those are all professions where you have to get up in people's business to a certain extent to get to the truth. And it's, once you're finding out all this information and you start to see that there's patterns or consistencies or inconsistencies, as the case may be, then good for her. I'm so glad that law enforcement picked up on it, too.
Oh, yeah. And she kind of took a seat back a little bit, but then we have some exhumation of Glenn's body after we see this happening with Randy, because they're like, the same thing happened to him. So they exhume him, and his mother's like, please do it when I'm out of town. And his brother was like, I want to be there, but he sat up in his car where he could watch. It's so sad. I mean, like, you got 6 years later having to go back, and they've been hurting this whole time. So what they found out was Jane, the journalist, she looks at Lynn and goes, why aren't you why are you just so calm like that? She said, I don't show my emotions, so that was okay, I guess. So she told her that. So they start looking at this, and Jane said, this doesn't make sense. So she goes to the toxicologist and goes, off the record, and this is what she thought. Could this have been antifreeze? And he's like, yes, off the record, it can be. So we got with that. So like I said, they exhumed Glenn, and then Lynn.
So that was shortly after Randy's death, because people are starting to get suspicious. Basically, the family's raising concerns. This journalist is raising concerns. Not long after Randy died, they're like, okay, let's just really dig into this and try to get some answers. So they exhumed Glenn Turner's body, and basically, I guess the family's already suspecting something sinister. And then the blood tests do reveal that ethylene glycol-based antifreeze was found in Thompson's system too. So, and then they talk about that animal shelter visit that you're talking about, and her questions about what they use to put animals down. And then I thought it was interesting too that apparently crime scene photos from Glenn Turner's death contained a photograph in the garage where antifreeze was visible. So, and then if she's not showing emotion, I guess she just, again, much like Judy Buonoano, it seems like she just felt completely comfortable with what she was doing and so convinced that people were going to believe her because she'd already gotten away with it. Never dawned on her that she needed to cover her tracks a little bit better. So they exhume Glenn Turner's body. They find this ethylene glycol in his kidneys, and then they find these crime scene photos that basically show a photograph in the garage where there was some antifreeze visible. What exactly does antifreeze do? We had another high-profile case in Pensacola where a local politician involved in a corruption scandal disappears, was found weeks later, his body under a house. Autopsy revealed that he had also taken antifreeze. And I mean, it's not an easy way to go, but it's effective.
Oh, yeah. It shuts your kidneys down, and it's miserable. It's just a miserable death. It doesn't take much of the antifreeze to make someone's kidney shut down. About a third of a soda can is all it takes. So Lynn was putting that interspersing in the green Jello because they both had green Jello. Or like with Willie Jr., it was in a big old cup from Whataburger, like a big gulp type of thing.
Interesting. And they had some Heineken bottles that they found as well. But yes, if you're interested in catching up on that episode, you can check that out. That's called Cash in the Collard Greens Pot. And that's a local mystery, if you will, although our local officials say it was suicide. Lots of folks do not believe that, and they think it's all tied up with some government corruption and people trying to keep the truth about certain situations from coming out. And then also, if you want to check out Judy Buonoano, I know I keep referencing that. We have a segment that we've done on that. Pam actually has a history with Judy Buonoano, the Black Widow. Her dad briefly dated her. They were familiar anyway before Judy ended up being arrested and eventually executed for the number of people that she killed, including her own son. So if you want to hear more about that, check out the episode called I'll Do the Cooking. that we covered on Judy Buenyo. But anyway, back to our latest Black
this
Widow.
lady,
So she's like using apparently antifreeze. The police are hot on her trail now. They've exhumed Glenn Turner's body. They found this evidence in his body. Now they're going to take a closer look at Randy Thompson. And these mamas are in the background going, what's going on? And thank goodness that it sounds like it's all coming together relatively quickly.
Right.
If she hadn't killed Randy Thompson, probably nobody ever would have looked twice at Glenn Turner.
And if the journalists hadn't have been in there asking curious questions that are just a natural answer should happen. Plus, they said, okay, we're trying these cases. Well, they tried Glenn Turner first, but Randy was the one that just passed away. So you're like, what's going on here? They said, and this is strategy, I guess, they said, Glenn was such a straight arrow, it's going to be easier to do his case because Randy kind of messy a little bit in here. Okay, God love him, but they're just trying to say, we want her for both of them, because when she got convicted for Glenn, when it was time for Randy's, they were seeking the death penalty for that one. She sat there, she thought she was not going to get convicted. She told Jane, our journalist, she's like, well, how are you feeling? What's going on? She said, or why are you so happy or whatever? She said, because I'm going to be acquitted. I mean, this lady, it's just her world. We're just barely living it.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, Pam, just to interrupt real quick, I know you mentioned strategy, and that, of course, makes me think of our favorite personal injury attorney, Joe Zarzar of Zarzar Law. He's an advertiser on our show and a supporter of Gulf Coast Confidential, and we are very appreciative of him. But more than that, he's a real seeker of justice, and he fights for his clients. If you've ever been hurt through no fault of your own, you want to talk to somebody who's going to be willing to fight for you and take on the big corporations, whether it's an insurance company or a business or someone that is responsible for creating circumstances that you suffered from. So everything from medical malpractice, he's representing a young widow whose husband was killed in an alleged drunk driving incident that was just horrific, dragged nearly a block underneath a woman's SUV on his motorcycle while she's pregnant with their child. So he's fighting for justice in that situation. Another case that we continue to follow, and Joe gives regular updates, is on the case of Dr. Thomas Sheknowski. He's a doctor who is accused of accidentally removing a man's liver instead of his spleen. And he's basically saying, no, nothing to see here. This is the liver. This isn't the liver. This is the spleen, when it's quite clearly marked liver. So at any rate, that is continuing. We are following that case as well. But we just want to thank Zarzar Law for his support. And if you ever need to talk to an attorney, we would highly recommend Joe Zarzar and appreciate his support of Gulf Coast Confidential as well. But moving back to our Lynn Turner episode. So 10 months after Randy Thompson's death, she's arrested for Glenn's murder. She's tried for his murder in 2004. And surprise to her, she is convicted.
Yes. Oh, definitely. She's sitting there. She doesn't believe it. And when they didn't seek the death penalty, but they tell her, okay, you're guilty. She literally takes her earrings right while they're saying, she didn't even finish telling her all of it, takes her earring off, takes his other earring off, like she's getting settled in to go. This lady, she's a sociopath. There is nothing there. There's no empathy. There's no awareness of anything. But people were saying a lot of that was by how she was raised. But how she was raised, her mom and them, her parents, gave her almost everything.
She was adopted, right?
Yeah.
Her mother had gotten pregnant and given her up for adoption.
So, I don't think she had a terrible childhood. I think she just had a overinflated ego and lived in her own world and just kept on and on and on like that. And what people were afraid of with this stuff, and sometimes if you watch a lot of true crime, every now and let's say you watch 20 of them, one or two of them going to be about antifreeze from back in the day, because they were afraid that people would do copycat, because everybody can get antifreeze. Everybody can make Jello. Everybody can make chicken noodle soup and stuff and just get rid of somebody. But this is a lust, greed, men running, I'm going to run this place the way I want to, no awareness of myself. And here it is. If she hadn't have tried to kill Randy, she would have gotten away with Glenn. But what's the difference? Like, why can't you just get a job and do that?
Enjoy your 911 dispatch job.
Yeah.
Enjoy being close to the profession that you admire so much. You're working as a team already anyway. Why not go ahead and just enjoy it? But some people, it's just never enough. They feel owed. And like you said, lives in her own world. But then she did go on trial for Randy Thompson's murder and ultimately was convicted of that too in 2007. And the state argued just what you're saying, that both men were poisoned with antifreeze in their food because it's odorless and has like a sweet taste. And it was interesting to me that she did face execution for Randy's murder, but was instead sentenced to life in prison without parole. So I guess I don't know why they made that decision.
I think sometimes certain prosecutors may have certain beliefs and just say, or sometimes the family.
Or maybe it didn't meet a criteria.
Yeah. But it was close, I think.
It would certainly seem so.
Because it was just methodical too and pre-thought out. But she just kept in that, like doubling down on it. You can watch her and just see. And when people write books about her, one of the main books written about her is called Cold-Hearted Biatch, and it goes like Lynn Turner type of thing. And so she was sneaky and did her own thing and stuff. But they said she was bright, really bright, that she would help the lawyers with her case before she got incarcerated, would help and wouldn't hardly talk to them or anything, but help them with all the stuff but sit there like she hadn't. And so they're like, well, she's smart enough about this. So her appeals, she thought, were going pretty well. But what they find out is not even 10 years. She kills herself.
Interesting.
In prison.
I saw that in 2010. In fact, it's kind of coming up on the anniversary at this point, 15 years, August 30th in 2010, she killed herself in prison. How did she do it?
She saved her medicine, her blood pressure medicine, and it probably had to be some other meds too. But then she hoarded it, for lack of a better word, hoarded her medicine, and then just took herself out. And so Randy's family and Glenn's family, that seems like no justice there, because but here's the thing, she ended her life the way she ended their lives.
Poisoned herself.
Yep. And I got a little poem right here that one of the prosecutor read. It's called The Poisoner. We poisoners are still around today. If you miss my crime, I might get away. Knowledge gained by my living close made it so very easy to deliver the dose. If I'm a different kind of killer, as you can see, I'm a poisoner. Catch me.
Ooh, that's creepy. I do enjoy the prosecutors and just cases that I've covered over the years. It is about storytelling to a certain extent. It's taking the facts that you're presented and helping people to understand the motivation and how a mind that would do something like that thinks and works. And I think that's a good example.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, these guys, they were just like, oh, found love or whatever, and then they end up dead.
Well, and it's interesting, too. You said a minute ago she got Randy back over with steak and sex, and I thought, it really is that simple. And it's unfortunate that sometimes people are so easily manipulated, but it's the same for women, too. Yeah. I mean, you have your Black Widow type men as well that prey on women who are lonely and lonely hearts and that sort of thing. So men and women both have their weaknesses, but it just boils down to, if you're not thinking like a homicidal maniac, if you're not a heartless, unempathetic sociopath, then you wouldn't necessarily think somebody's, oh gosh, they're using their feminine wiles to abuse me. They're promising me all these gifts and love and, a little hanky-panky, and because they secretly want to put me 6 feet under in the ground and take all my money for life insurance. But at any rate, I do hate that. It just seems like that's a difficult thing to see through that. You don't know until you know, but it's a shame that those men had to die for their families to find out and expose her, but at least she was caught.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Make your own green Jello, and we got these other cases where these folks are poisoning people's protein shakes, so we got a bunch of those cases coming up in probably about a month. But, you just want, when you're sick, you just want someone to love on you, and she loved them to daggum death.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, Pam, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you too. That is it for Heartless Lynn Turner, loved policemen to death. Thanks to our listeners and those watching on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can check out more of our episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, and we will see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.